I'm really excited to introduce Gerry LaFemina. He's the author of over 20 books, most recently The Pursuit, A Meditation on Happiness, and Baby Steps for Doomsday Prepping, just a collection of prose poems. A new collection of poems, After the War for Independence, will appear next year on Stephen F. Austin University Press. A noted literary arts activist who's served on the board of directors of AWP and edited numerous literary journals and anthologies, LaFemina is the former director of the Center for Literary Arts at Frostburg State University, where he is a professor of English. He serves as a mentor in the MFA Program at Carlow University and is a Fulbright Specialist in writing, literature, and American culture. He is also the principal songwriter and frontman for Coffin Curse recording artist, the Downstrokes. Please help me welcome Gerry LaFemina.
I think Wake Up Sleepyhead should be like shouted out before every poetry reading. It looks great, actually. It's also what my cat says to me at 6:30 every morning. I'm going to start with one poem from the book that's coming out. This is called Scenic Overlook, I-68, East, Maryland. The first greens of March, still weeks away. Today is gray, sky over gray landscapes, cut by grayer roads with a gambler's chance of disinterested rain. To the south, Virginia and West Virginia, though who can tell them apart from this distance? There's no line I can see, no border other than some sign saying welcome to or now leaving. Over the weekend, breaking news featured a girl found at the bottom of this cliff face. Broken bones, lacerations, her boyfriend dead. A suicide pact, she insisted, from her hospital bed. The state police closed this place for days. Red cones and lit signs telling us, though some gawkers parked in the exit lane, hazards blinking, and walked right in. Some noted anomalies and inconsistencies and suspected foul play. Where was his car, after all? How did they get this far without notice? A dumb friend sworn silent, or an out-of-state driver who stopped for two young hitchhikers. Others speculated a West Side Story situation, star-crossed paramours that had finally said enough. Something about opioids, something about meth. What will happen to that girl? She's the age of my students who seem often infatuated and sullen both. Too late, our delegates debate erecting a fence to prevent anyone else from climbing over the waist-high barricade, but that would ruin the view. It's breathtaking, after all. The horizon, if you can believe it, stretching out on bright days to North Carolina. Maybe it's possible in June, when the good greens fill the leaves in the valley and the mountainsides are 60 shades of vibrant. It's a lucky thing, the news had said, they jumped in January, for their dark figures were visible against another snowfall. Come verdant spring, those bodies might have been lost among the brush, the lush, overgrown undergrowth, food for coyotes and carrion birds. So it would seem like they'd just gone from here, as so many young people looking to escape, hoping to take highways at 70 into the myths of opportunity, sunlit places just beyond Appalachian mists, so thick some mornings they shroud everything, even a mother's grief, and bent shoulders, even these remaining groves of centuries-old white oaks. I want to thank David and Stefan and Claire. I want to thank everybody who's read today. It's been so great. It's such an honor to be here. I'm going to read now some prose poems. This is a poetry reading. I'm going to start with a celebration of poetry. It's called American Poetry. It's in memory of Thomas Lux, my beloved teacher and friend. It is also, you might remember there was a time when there were going to be like these words that the CDC was going to ban. Like we weren't allowed to say them anymore. It became a big project. So I wrote this for them. And so these are the words that it uses all the words that we weren't supposed to say. I recognize these claims I make are not science-based. I praise American poetry's diversity, for its diversity is its strength. Each poem conceived in a climax of inspiration, an image of an overheard phrase, or a word banned by bureaucrats, committees, or point-totaling politicians, or you name it. Then the gestation of drafts. I'm aware this is a terrible metaphor, but the poem becomes fetus and eventually gets its entitlement of a title. Most Americans don't care, don't read poems any more than they read medical journals. They remain ambivalent about peer reviews. Not that it matters. Nor does it matter that sometimes revisions are transgenre. Prose poems longing for lineation and vice versa. Verse free and formal both, believing it should be a paragraph, wanting only the cadence of the sentence. How vulnerable each word, each syllable. What evidence-based claims might the critics down the hall make with their deconstructions about these matters? I couldn't construct their hypotheses or their outcomes, only know the myths of their methodologies. I wouldn't want anything else. I recognize my claims are not science-based, but I praise American poetry for its diversity. Its diversity is its strength. And to stick on a very minor political bent, although this poem predates anything that has to do with Ukraine and Russia, this is Soviet Kitchenette, which is actually about my great-aunt's kitchen. I lived in Little Kiev, formerly dinky Krakow, in my Polish aunt's apartment long after Glasnost. The voices of block refugees guttural in the elevators, scent of Serniki and Krushnedhim, heavy in the seafoam hallways. The Russians, rumor has it, live in Coney Island on blocks dubbed Mini Moscow and Petite Petersburg. They feed the black pigeons crumbs from black bread in a meager red square. They say the borscht there is to die for. When the Cuban restaurant we went to closed, when the Uzbeki diner lowered its grate for the last time like a curtain being drawn, I stayed stoic. Now Odessa, that lousy dive of midnight pierogi and blintzes, is locking its doors too. My favorite waitresses banished to the Siberia of unemployment, myself to the gulag of loneliness. Having escaped the Cossacks, my aunt wouldn't tolerate my disappointment. There, in the cramped galley, she'd prepare the kielbasa and cabbage and goulash. She wasn't the best cook like her vain sister was, but she did understand the starkest comforts. I'm sorry, I love the prose poem, but I recognize they're weird. I also want to say how great it is. This is like a square book reading. Like both books are square. It's like the squares are reading poetry. Oh no, the squares are always reading poetry. Never mind. This is called Taxidermy Jigsaw. Yeah. Because she was articulate with her ardor, brought with affection gifts she left beside the bed, my cat will have a 10th life, not as a name engraved on a mahogany box of grit and minerals on the mantle, not buried beneath a small mound behind the back garden as if she'd been a spaniel named Sparky. And no, I won't do what a former landlord did with his dead Irish setter, stuffed, forever sitting, one paw up as if to shake. Instead, let's have the taxidermist remove the flesh and viscera from the bones, strip the muscles too, until she's nothing but puzzle pieces, re-articulated, a feline skeleton backed from the prow, all femur and rib cage like she never was, the small skeleton of a vole trapped in her jaw, its thin spine a splinter, cat teeth almost grinning, so proud of herself. Now, when I miss her, I might gaze at the skull, pet each vertebrae with my index finger, saying again, what a good girl she is. Yeah, you don't know whether you should clap with that one. This is for my students. Those of you who teach might understand this. It's called the hive mind. There's a bee in the classroom, not a particularly large one, smaller than my small toe. It wears a black and yellow striped sweater, translucent wings. There's a bee in the classroom, and my college students point and duck their heads. They forget they are 17 Godzillas to the bee. None of them are allergic, so I'm bemused by their sudden, startled shrieks. We've been talking about the muse up until this point today, how I don't believe in such a thing. This stings their sensibilities. The bee in the classroom is a happy distraction. Their reactions prevent them from seeing the possible poems in the way its antennae move. There's a bee in the classroom, my students are all abuzz. I mention the fuzzy socks it wears. They're confused, I find it cute. They ask me to kill it. It's only a bee after all, a worker, and my karma. There's a bee in the classroom. I want to keep it in an apiary of one, make it the class mascot, for the bee brings gold. Maybe there's an NEA or Guggenheim or MacArthur Genius among us. I suggest after class they all go for mead. Suggest no one's at risk if they're not pollen-full, blossoming. But they don't listen because there's a bee in the classroom. Exasperated, I open the window finally until it flees, flying free into early autumn. My students swarm to watch from their newfound safety. I can see the children they were only 12 years ago. One girl waves to it, that small thing growing smaller in the afternoon's honeyed light. It's called How I Learned Cruelty. It's what makes me read prose poems to you all. I made a model snowman out of 3 scoops of vanilla ice cream, some chocolate sprinkles for eyes and nose. Then I let him melt, there in the bowl, the slow metamorphosis of solid to liquid, his features uglifying, getting less defined, till he fell over, a white puddle growing. My spoon in the dish like the gravedigger's shovel. You don't have to clap, really, it's okay. It's okay. That's why I love the prose poem. Yeah. What is this? It's called Thinking of You. It starts with an epigraph from Jaime Sabines. I like to think of you since I think. It's a good reason to think of somebody, because we think. I like to think of you in the shower, not because I like to imagine your body naked, sheened with water, though I do, but because of how you sing in the spray songs I can't decipher. I like to think of you at the table at work while I'm at the table at work, our table like an unscrolled map of a continent I would cross on horseback if I must. Every day I consult the almanac of your name. I like to think of you in the waning minutes of light before full dark in the country where full dark still exists, and how you become in that moment dusky, mysterious. Your earrings, the first stars. I like to think of you writing this postcard in invisible ink, the one I turn over in my hands with my morning coffee, my morning scratch of the cat's head. I like to think of you because I am when I think of you, and I am more than when I think of you. Now is not the time for a lesson in less than thoughts. Of course, you've heard such things before. Guys almost like me are lined up in soup lines. They hunger, they thirst. I like to think of you so I can continue to go without. Just a couple more. Put you through enough. This is called Schrodinger's box. Everybody talks about the damn cat. It's not fair. Forget the cat. The box, not a cat box, but a box fit for a cat, is what's important. How magical it must be that we can't know what's inside, whether what we left there remains. More like my mother's pocketbook, how things vanished within till they were found again. Money, lifesavers, what have you. Is it cardboard, plastic, wooden with brass hinges and a small latch? Science doesn't specify, but all of physics must be inside, like the Ark of the Covenant, like a safe for the Hope Diamond, like the ring box for the engagement never engaged. Does the love still exist? What is that hurt, that yowling? Did I say two more? There's gonna be two more now. I lied. I'm a musician. Also, this is a celebration of my guitar, actually. It's called Gibson Les Paul Double Cutaway, with homage to Christopher Smart. For 6 strings exist, one for each finger of the fretting hand, and once more to confuse the novice. For although it's made for our feral souls to rock, to scream, to shred, unplugged it weeps gently in my arms like a lover once did a few days before she decided it was all over. For it knows harmony and harmonics, major chords and discord, the feel of my fingers firm, tips calloused on its neck. For it reflects light and absorbs light simultaneously like a sunbather, how I want and don't want to turn away. Thus, the guitar teaches us again ambivalence. For plugged in, it squeals like a locomotive, chug, chug, chugging through the bad side of town, the crossings down, clanging. We call this tone. For I have looked on jealous when it's in the grip of another, how she coaxed it to sing with her touch. Her expression was, I imagine, that of angels when God made the heaven and the earth and declared it was good. For the struck power chord and sustain like a mini Big Bang because music was and wasn't at the creation. for its double cutaway gives it the look of devil's horns. This is why kids stretch out pinky and index finger from their hands, rocking to the beat. For rock and roll, preachers said, is Lucifer's music. So I wrote for weeks a song called Paradise Regained, all pentatonic and palm mute. For at the end of the night I rested in its cradle, and still I'm just a punk who knows little but downstroke, treble, and trouble. For it is the bad side of town, for I've repented and trespassed again, head-banging, all bar chord and boogie, all feedback and growl, all torch song and dirge. And because we had a lovely ekphrastic poem earlier, I'm going to end on an ekphrastic. This is called Mackerel and Bottle. It's based on a painting by William Scott. Not the holy mackerel of the exclamation, nor the ones caught and served by the disciples to feed 5,000. Nope. Only ordinary mackerel, 2 of them for the 2 of us, waiting for the frying pan. The wine, too, from the liquor store's middle shelf for our middle-class aspirations, a middling white, open to breathe. But there's only one glass set out, for I remembered you gone. Thus, I've invited the overcast sky inside. Don't be condescending. I haven't been crying. That's only condensation moist on my cheek. Despite my prayers for intercession, my supplications for your safe return, I don't say grace. Instead, I cook the fish whole, plate them that way, so their eyes gaze at me while I dine, desperate as I am for some company. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Gerry. Great poems, wonderful energy. Thank you so much. Thanks for making the trip today, too.